one little kiss for all of you, no matter what side of the fence you're on. I'm in your court. I really am, and I want you to have your power back and your sanity back. You can solve this problem instead of belonging to a particular party that's keeping you in fear so they can make money. It's all about money. Join a different party. Make up a new party. Make up the pussy party. How about that? How about this? Felina's pussy party. Join Felina's pussy party. How about that? That's a good one. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Wicked Felina. I'm so glad you joined me, and I'm hoping that this time I've had away from you. I actually had no SD card. I ordered it got lost in the mail, so I wasn't able to make any videos. So things came and went that I wanted to talk about. Anyway, what's still going on is the Kavanaugh meetings, the Kavanaugh circus. Barnum and Bailey closed up shop because PETA, all the petitions from PETA basically closed up Barnum and Bailey. And so we don't have that, and we don't have, the tent of oddities, Barnum's oddities anymore, that we could see like the 2 or 3 headed screaming women. But we can see them. If you really want to see some oddities, we can see them in the news every single day. Either if you watch, MSNBC, CNN, all those wonderful stations. You can see them on those stations, and it isn't just the people that they bring on to talk to. It's also the host. It's also the people running the station. So if you want to see some Barnum oddities, you can see them there, and then you can see them in the streets with vagina hats on and screaming and yelling and throwing eggs and rocks and blaming the Republicans or Trump for being the violent person. Anyway, so we got some oddities, Barnum oddities, or we should call them Kavanaugh, the Kavanaugh oddities that have been breaking into the courthouse and screaming and yelling at Kavanaugh because he's so awful. He's like worse than Hitler. This guy is like a baby killer. Wait, strike that, reverse that. Okay, all right. So, yeah, okay, so it's not that they're yelling at him because he's a baby killer. It's because, I don't even have to say it. So we know why they're yelling at him. Now, we're going to look at the whole picture. What's really the problem? So we have a problem in this country that there's many, many, many women that have fetuses in them that are a bunch of cells that are not quite human, right? That need desperately to have them terminated, removed. Because they're not really human. And so they need them removed. So if they're not human, what happens to the ones that, that come out of the mother? What do you call those? I don't know. I'm confused. But anyway, so here's the big picture. You got Planned Parenthood, and you got the Democratic Party. Planned Parenthood, as we have found out as fact, is selling they get these bunches of cells that they call fetuses that are not really humans, and they get them from these women who are desperate and probably filled with hormones and are not, it's hard for them to know what the right decision is. And so they get them from these women in these desperate situations, and they get them from them, and then they sell them for millions and millions of dollars. And so Planned Parenthood makes millions of dollars. So you would think that they would want these things to continue, and maybe, possibly not, do your marches on Kavanaugh and scream and yell and Trump instead of the educational system, which apparently is failing to teach young women and boys, whatever, but basically young women, that they have to take the responsibility into their own hands. And even though they are raised by parents, and some of them are not parents, they could be foster, it doesn't really matter. There are health classes in school that are failing these girls. They're not being taught that all of a sudden you start getting your menses, and then you start getting all these hormones that you don't quite understand. And they're quite overpowering. And every time you get this feeling, it's actually sexual. It's not necessarily love. And so you meet up with a guy, fine, strapping gentleman, who's got all these hormones going on that he's never quite had before, this intensely also. And when they have these hormones going off in their body, something happens to their brain. They will actually, this is a fact, this is a provable scientific psychological fact, that it kind of makes them stupid. And the only thing that they can do is to do or say anything to the girl so she will have sex. And when you look at the big picture, broader picture, this is how humans procreate. This is why we are here, is that these hormones go off, especially in the youths that are not used to these hormones or controlling these hormones in any way, or understand, oh, okay, that's why I've got that feeling. It's that time. It's ovulation time, which I look at I have a calendar that I keep, and I know it tells me, oh, I'm feeling depressed. Oh God. Oh, wait. Okay. Hormones are going off. Or I'm feeling anxious. Okay. Yeah, it's that day. Hormones are going off. Or I'm feeling, whoa. Okay. Ovulation time. You act, and then you kind of put it, you can look at it a little more, you sit back and you look at it more academically, like, okay, all right, that's just what it is. That's what I'm feeling. It's not necessarily that I'm in love and I just found the love of my life, who the next day will probably break her heart because his hormones basically are telling him, you must do this, you have to do this, you have to say anything to get that sex. And this continues with the male, even though he's young and he gets older. The male species, the ones who are born with sticks and berries that have, in their genes, have this in their biology, whether they identify with a certain gender or not. They have this biology that drives them to tell the other gender with a certain biology that they must. And same-sex couples will do this too, because it's biology. They're driven to this sexual activity. The hormones are strong, and they have to do or say anything to get the end result. And unfortunately, the next day, a lot of these people go away. Well, the educational system, clearly, we should have intact families. We should have families that are normal. I know a lot are abnormal. I understand that. But if the families are abnormal, we certainly do need the school system to do their job and to be straight-faced about it. Just look them straight in the face and say, look, guys are going to convince you, because this is what's going on in their bodies. This is what's going on in your body. And nature, not nurture, but nature does this, drives us to need to do that act, because nature, everything in our bodies says procreate. So the species will continue. Okay, so it's just an academic way of looking at it. But apparently, these women who were losing their minds and thinking that the meteor is going to hit and it's only going to kill the women that want abortions and it's going to bypass all the white Trump supporters. They're acting like this. I mean, I left the house last night and I went to an open mic, but they had a main act, which consisted of 3 postmenopausal, little overweight women who the whole act, they had lovely voices and they had one of them had a husband who was in the corner playing the guitar, but he was in the corner. He knew his place, which is good, it's wonderful. So anyway, in between each song, it was about the desperate situation that this country is in, the desperate situation that the world is in. That Congress needs. We just pray that the Congress has their heads together and knows what to do to stop this catastrophe from happening. And it was just everything. You know what? I got out of the house. I didn't listen to my radio shows, and I usually listen to radio shows rather than being on the net, actually, like real-time interviews and stuff like that. You think with a different part of your brain if you listen to the radio because you're imagining things with the other part of your brain. You're thinking better than having visuals constantly coming at you. But me, I'm the best visual on these platforms, so you can continue to watch me. That's perfectly fine. So I got away from politics. I thought I got away from politics, and I should know better. I live in the most liberal town in the most liberal state in the whole country, which incidentally, they just realized that abortion was against the law in the state that I live in. And so they changed the law back. They changed the law that it's not against the law in this particular state, because the reality is that the Supreme Court, because this whole abortion thing is teetering on the edge. And the reason why it's teetering on the edge is because the determination of the court is that the fetus is a part of the woman's body and she has a right to get rid of a part of her body if she wants to. And the truth is, DNA, genetics, it actually is not. And that's scientific. That's not, you see, the liberals live in this world that you can interpret the law any way you want. Anything is as you want. Like Elizabeth Warren said of Kavanaugh that if there is no precedent, which she's a law professor and she got 2 of her jobs, including Harvard, Ivy League schools. She just decided that she was not her entire life. It's like within 10 years' time, she looked for 2 jobs and she checked the box that she was Native American. But before that, she had no idea that she was Native American, never checked the box before. But she is a law professor. And she has this is how clueless she is. She has no idea when she said that if there is no precedent, Kavanaugh will have to make up the law. And, being religious, and being involved with all these religious activities, God only knows what law he's going to make up. When she has no idea, being a law professor, that the judges are supposed to interpret the law. They're not supposed to rule on emotion. They're supposed to interpret the law. And the reason why the Democrats thought this way is that when Obama was appointing Sonia Sotomayor and Elijah Kagan, he said he wanted to appoint judges that ruled on their empathy or their sympathy or their feelings, which is completely wrong. And as somebody who went to Harvard to become a lawyer and a constitutional with degree in the Constitution, that he's supposed to know the Constitution, he should know without being president, and I've never been president, that they're supposed to interpret law. A judge is not supposed to rule on their feelings, because if you ruled on your feelings, and let's say the person that's the defendant there, it is wearing the color that your mother wore when she was killed by a train, and every time you saw that color, you got very emotional. So you might hate the defendant and then therefore rule against him. Or you might love the defendant and rule in the defendant's favor, not based on facts. So that's why we cannot rule on feelings. Like if you say that you're assuming that Kavanaugh's feelings for abortion, for the idea whether to keep abortion or throw it out, as if this actually comes up, this has to come before the court. This has to be brought before the court before anything can even happen, that he's going to rule on his feelings and not according to the law. That is what the judges all across this country have been doing. They have been ruling on politics, on their feelings, what Obama would want them to do, what their progressive liberal socialist ideology says to do, not interpret the law. Interpreting the law would say that the president has the right to temporarily, actually to suspend permanently anybody from any country from coming to this country. But Trump just wanted 3 months just to figure out what they were going to do, because people from certain countries, which Obama deemed as threats, terrorist activity, these countries, he also was worried about people coming from these countries, the same countries Trump said that he didn't want them coming in from, because there was no police system, there was no birth certificate. We have no idea. There's no way, there's no infrastructure to find out who these people are or what they did. But nevertheless, it's a Muslim ban, even though there are 57 Muslim majority countries. And if 5 of them are banned, that means 52 of the Muslim majority countries are allowed into this country, including the other countries where they're not a majority, but they're still a Muslim, can also come into this country. And there are Muslims in this country, which I would think that a Muslim ban would probably kick Muslims out of this country, similar to what Jimmy Carter did when when they took the hostages. He kicked out Iranians that were going to school here. He kicked all the Iranians out of the country and put a ban on Iran from anybody coming into the country. But somehow he had the right to do that, to actually kick people out. And Trump isn't trying to kick anybody out. He just wants to know. But anyway, that's a quick digression about what's been happening in the courts, that the Obama appointed judges are ruling on their ideology, their feelings, what they think should be. And that's very dangerous, because if you come before a court and you are innocent, you need the facts to prove that you're innocent. You can't have a judge deciding, well, what political party do they belong to? Well, they're guilty. That's what you're going to get. That's how the Democrats rule. They're saying Trump is throwing out the principles that this country was founded on. He's throwing out the Constitution. No, he's not. He wants judges that will work, that will interpret the Constitution. And lies are piling up every time I turn on Facebook, and then you will have people re-spitting out old lies that I've already on this channel have quashed. I've quashed them, but these lies are coming back again because more people need to listen to my channel, because apparently if we can educate people, then we can kind of quash this. And when you hear a lie, you'll know what the truth actually is. So getting back to, we went Elizabeth Warren and interpreting the law. Well, anyway, getting back to my night out. Sorry for the digression, but there's so many details to learn. There's so much out there to learn. Anyway, so getting back to my night out and the whole thing with the women who were just they were so beside themselves. That the end of the world is coming. And it's all because Kavanaugh might be appointed to the Supreme Court. Now, if he's appointed to the Supreme Court, and should abortion come up, that Roe v. Wade, we want to throw out Roe v. Wade. And we've decided that, yes, science actually says, right away when this whole, after climate change, the whole gender debate came, immediately I said, wait a second, Republicans are ignoring science, but we're supposed to ignore science on this whole gender debate. Immediately, that's the first thing I thought, but I wasn't making videos, so I couldn't tell you that I was the first who thought of this. They also want to ignore the fact that it's more than just a fetus. The brain starts to develop immediately. It starts to develop immediately. In fact, it develops very fast, and it has to, because the brain in any creature, it tells the rest of the body what to do and how to do it. You've got to have a working brain, so the brain is developed. So it is a separate, scientifically, when I'm just speaking scientifically, it is a separate being in your body. So let's say that happens. Well, then it gets kicked back to the states, and the states decide whether it's legal or illegal in their state. And no one will go to jail for having an abortion if it's legal in that state. My guess would be that most states would keep abortion legal. That would be my guess, because it would be entirely too upsetting to the population. And the women would be marching and burning things down. There'd be with the vagina hats on their heads, and dressed like a vagina. Now I guess men are dressed like penises now. I mean, the whole Democratic Party is just, these things should be kept in your pants. Really, I mean, really somebody should throw a big pair of pants off over all of these people. Oh my God. Well, anyway, so realistically, this isn't going to happen. And we've had Republican presidents, and every time, not only do they call them Hitler, they all are, even McCain was Hitler. Even McCain was a white supremacist. Do you realize this? McCain, now he's the best thing since sliced bread, because he basically said F you to Trump. He wrote everything everybody said in those funerals, sir. Everything. All these, how great he was and how he sacrificed and all this stuff. He wrote it all. Hard for me to have respect for him. Really hard. But basically, it was an F you to Trump. But the Democrats still, when he was running against Obama, well, he's a white supremacist, KKK, Nazi, all that stuff. He's a Republican. He's going to reverse Roe v. Wade. It's the same thing. They hated him then. And they also said that McCain, the media that loves him now, and the Democratic Party that loves him now, because he cleverly invited all the Democrats to his funeral. Well, they were saying that that he was insane from being prisoner of war. It actually drove him insane. And he's old and he's losing his mind. So they were saying all these horrible things about him. And all of a sudden, he's like God's gift to everyone right now. So it's a shame that McCain died. But if we look back and we remember the 2008 election, what were they saying about McCain then? They were saying the same thing. They put the fear back into women. He's going to appoint somebody to the Supreme Court that's going to get rid of abortion. It's the same song and dance. They're all Hitler. They all belong to the KKK, and they're all going to get rid of abortion, and there's a new one on the pile now, and they're going to get rid of gay marriage. That's if you vote for a Republican. So you've got all these groups scared, and all the minorities scared. Well, he's going to send you back to your country, blah, blah, blah. You know, when we all know we don't want criminals. We don't want the criminals. We just want to know who these people are that are coming into the country, because there's a lot of drug cartels and they run the border and they've left headless bodies all over the border. That's what they do. We just don't want, and we don't want sex trafficking, little children being brought over for sex trafficking, or women, sex trafficking, rape, and all that stuff. We don't want this. We would like the people who are not criminals, who just want to come here and work and obey the laws of this country, and work with America, work within the system. That's all he wants. That's all he wants. So we've added that on the pile. All these reasons to hate Republicans, and to hate Republicans getting into any office whatsoever. But it's always the same song and dance. Or, Reagan, he was also Hitler and the KKK, and was going to reverse Roe v. Wade, except what he did was he appointed Sandra Day O'Connor, who was actually voted liberal as well as conservative, and Justice Kennedy, who just stepped down, who Kavanaugh is replacing, who Kavanaugh clerked for. And Kavanaugh was hired by Elena Kagan. Elena Kagan, interesting. Elena Kagan, who was appointed by Barack Obama. Interesting. So we've got all these people, all these groups of people mobilized, ready to fight, crazed, wearing genitalia, whether it be male or female genitalia. Even though some guys are dressed like a penis now, but they might still identify as a woman, though they're dressed like a penis. And some women with the vagina hats on their head could identify with a male penis, that they really are male, which is interesting and confusing at the same time. But that's what's going on. And so you got all these groups fighting and hating each other. Well, yeah, they're hating each other, especially the whites. And there's a singularity going on. It's all about everything on late night television, every talking point. Remember when you turn it on for comedy at one time? It's all about destroying Trump. That's the one end. Get him out of office. Why? Why get him out of office? Here's a man who gave millions to civil rights. And what else did he do? Oh, he hired more minorities and women than any other businessman, and he was given an award by Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. Of course, they're changing their tune now. Hired the first female foreman. I mean, it's lie after lie. And it's lie after lie, and no matter how much I try to throw the truth out, the lie still comes back. So I wish I had a bigger audience to try to undo some of these lies. But see, the lies still come back. And so you've got, and I'll tell you something about religious people. Kavanaugh's a religious person, right? And the Democrats are scared of religious people. They're very frightened of them. And see, if you're a Catholic, most Catholics actually vote Democrat. Kennedy was a Democrat that was a Catholic. Somehow, even though with the whole abortion thing that used to be against the Catholic Church, the Catholics still voted Democrat because they were sold this idea. And even my grandfather used to campaign for the Democratic Party, and my uncles, very big in the Democratic Party. They were sold this bill of goods that they're for the poor people. And so that came first. If they're for the poor people and they work from the bottom up instead of the top down, then everybody's going to get more money. But the funny thing is that this particular president is the one that gave that tax cut. And because of that, more people are hiring and people got bonuses and they're getting higher wages in their paycheck. So that's interesting that they think that way and they feel that they must destroy this president. But somehow it was because Barack Obama's, if you know economics, 8 years in office when he blamed Bush for 8 years for his failure to help the economy. And he insisted that the jobs weren't coming back. The jobs weren't coming back. And we were used to a high lifestyle and we had to get used to a low lifestyle. Still the Democratic, this is how crazy the Democrats are. Still the Democrats are saying that it's because of what Obama did. But look at what he said. And look at what he actually did. And look at what Trump did. This is all about Trump. This is all about destroying Trump. That's what this whole thing. This is the one end. There is no other issue on the plate other than destroying Trump. Get him out of office. Put Hillary in there as if the election never happened. Despite all these things that you think the Democrats are going to do for you, he's actually doing it, and he's doing it. He did it because he brought these jobs back. Right after he got elected, he started working. We know what he did to make these things happen, and he did them, not Obama. Obama assured us that this was never going to happen. I'd like to see how he's going to make that happen. So my question is, what are you holding on to? What are you holding on to? The people who are driving you crazy, mobilizing you and telling you somehow the end of the world is if you can't have an abortion. You can't have an abortion. The world is going to end if you can't have an abortion. Instead of, realistically, every Republican president that's ever been in office has never come close to trying to change that law. Realistically, Trump gave millions to the civil rights movement. He also gave millions to Planned Parenthood. He's a New Yorker. Realistically, and you think it's going to happen under him. Well, let's say it does happen. And there's a reason why Planned Parenthood wants to keep this going. We know they sell these things that are just a bunch of cells, even though they're this big sometimes. They sell them for millions of dollars. And also Hollywood is obligated to give millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood has a huge lobby. You think the gun lobby is big? It isn't. It's actually very small. Planned Parenthood has a huge lobby because they get a lot of money, and they get money from the government, the taxpayers. They've got money coming in right and left, including selling dead fetuses. Dead fetuses, okay? So the people who are making all this money, this is a racket. This is a racket, is what it is. The people who are, this is not to help girls who are in a desperate situation. No, you take girls who are in a desperate situation, who are very hormonal, who are very scared, and you make millions off of them. So you don't tell them how difficult, as bad as a birth is, how difficult an abortion is, mentally and physical. It is very, very difficult. I've never had one, but I know from talking to women who've had abortions, and then of course you counsel them and saying, well, as long as you tell the baby that to come back later, and you have to counsel them. Because they're losing their minds. They're so scared about what they're doing. But you don't hear that side. But you hear the side that these girls are very scared because, well, their boyfriend's abusive. Okay, their boyfriend is abusive. And if they have this baby, they'll be attached to the guy. Well, they don't tell you the other side of the story, that if they have this baby, they don't have this baby, and the boy knows that she's pregnant, what do you think happens to the girl when she's no longer pregnant? This is a side of the story nobody's talking about. Nobody's talking about. And if this guy is that bad, why isn't he in jail? Why aren't the women, take your damn pussy hats off your head and go into the streets and demand that the law put these abusive men behind bars. Keep them from hurting women. If they're abusive, and that's why this woman needs to have the abortion, get them from behind bars, or get them behind bars. That's what you do. You make the law work, and the law should work. And if the law isn't working and the woman feels she has to have an abortion because she's afraid of this man, then the law isn't working. Why do we have so many abortions? There's the other question. Why is it that we have so many abortions? After all this time, the fact that we have health class that tells young girls and boys about birth control, how a baby's made, why is it that nobody's being educated? Now, two young folk who don't understand why their hormones are going crazy and why the man will sit there and say everything he possibly can to get sex. And he does this for the rest of his life. This is what the male does. He does because the hormones go off and you say whatever you... And the part of it is that we're human beings. And there's a force inside of us that drives us to procreate. It drives both the male and the female to procreate. And when you're young and you really don't have control of these hormones, you don't understand that this will pass. This feeling is intense right now. It will pass. And girls, very young girls, even older women, mistake the feeling of sex, that sexual feeling, for love. And love is something that grows over time. And you should really be someone's friend first. They can't separate the two. This is just sex. This is not love. It might turn out to be love. It might. In some cases it does. But if you're going to take a gamble, the majority of cases is that it isn't. And the man needs sex. And then afterwards, he will go and your heart will be broken and you might be pregnant. You take a gamble, guns on the table, take a gamble. You most likely, he just wants sex and that's it. That's why you should become friends first and develop a relationship. But you see, what apparently isn't being taught is about hormonal changes. And I know you want to hear about hormonal changes, but a woman needs to track her hormonal changes. All of a sudden, when I become depressed, I look at the calendar and say, okay, I know where I am in my cycle. Or I become anxious. Oh, okay, got it. Or I'm feeling that way. All right, ovulation time. And so you can look at it academically. You can step back and say, realistically, this is just the hormones, and the body wants me to procreate because this is nature. This is what nature does. And this needs to be instilled into women, to look at it academically, to know what's going on in their body, and to figure out exactly when you are fertile. Every woman needs to know when she's fertile. So these women in these pussy hats, take your pussy hats off and start. If you first go to the schools, goes to the first go and talk to these people that you might hate. I don't know how you feel about the educational system, but go talk to them and say, this is important. There are so many abortions a year. There's so many girls getting pregnant, and for some reason, they don't know to go to the clinic to get Plan B. Take Plan B within 5 days, you won't have a baby. It stops it. So they have that option. Apparently, these girls don't know that they have that option, that you can actually prevent the pregnancy by taking Plan B and not have an abortion. Very simple. It's just a pill. And these birth controls are really practically free. They're extremely cheap. Why don't these girls know this? If you want to be sexually active, why don't they know this? Why isn't the school first? Because they go to school, you got them in the school. Educate them there first about birth control. Let's bring down the number of abortions first. Wouldn't that be good? So a girl doesn't have to physically and emotionally go through this, because it's extremely difficult. And the idea is, well, I couldn't have a baby and not know what happened to it. That would break me apart. Well, the other option might be a little bit harder, and these girls don't understand this until it's too late. Okay, until it's too late. They're never told this until it's too late. So if you want abortion to continue, you have to petition the right people. You have to decree, don't let these girls go through an abortion if they don't have to. Make sure they're educated. Make sure they know about their cycle. Make sure they know about all the birth control. Don't depend on the guy for birth control. Do not depend on the guy for birth control, because you cannot depend on them. And if they don't want to use birth control, they are abusive, because they don't care if you get pregnant or not. They just want what they want when they want it, and they don't want to use that thing because it dulls their feeling. They're abusive. Get away from them. Women need to be educated on abuse, on what to do if the man is abusive. If you get pregnant by a guy that you're afraid, oh, he's abusive and I don't want to be attached to him for the rest of my life, I can totally understand that. I can understand that. These men need to be brought to the law. Women need to be taught that they're worthy. You're worthy. You deserve more than this. Yes, you are royalty. You deserve better than this guy and the way he's treating you. Don't throw pearls before swine. You deserve someone that will love you. You deserve that. Not to get pregnant because you wanted to give the man what they wanted, because you wanted love. Men give love to have sex, then they don't love you anymore. Women give sex to get love. That's a very old saying, but it's the truth. So these women really need to understand, hey, if they're controlling and abusive, they do not love you. And you need to understand the cycle of violence. And the schools, the women's shelters need to get their act together. And this is where the women need to go to make sure girls are not put in this situation, that they're made to feel strong and powerful and worthy. That if a man mistreats them or their partner, whether a baby is involved or not, your partner, with same sex, whatever gender, doesn't matter. You shouldn't be abused. You should be treated with respect. And you should be loved. And you should make sure the person who's with you loves you and respects you and is your friend. This needs to be taught. If it's not taught, it should be taught in the schools. Teach it there first. And make sure they hear don't let the teacher drone on. Make sure they hear what the teacher says. and make sure the teacher needs to know that they got it. And yes, the school should be telling these children, you are worthy. Even the boys deserve to be loved. But their hormones are going off. They're not thinking love. They're just like, oh, these crazy hormones are going off. And a lot of them are smoking dope. Oh my God. And alcohol and marijuana doesn't help. It doesn't help. You're on drugs, women can get pregnant. Or you can get a sexually transmitted disease. That's another story. That's why drugs aren't really that good unless you know the person, you trust the person, you know you're on reliable birth control, you know that they're free of diseases. You have to know these things first, then you do your drugs. Okay, then you can have a little alcohol and have a little fun, whatever you take, okay? But these things have to be in place. And they need to be taught. And if they're not taught in the educational system, it's not Trump that you petition Trump that you want this done. You demand that Trump make sure that we're all educated, even the ones that didn't go to school, even the ones who were out of school, that everyone is educated on this and how easy it is to get birth control and how easy it is to get Plan B should you make that mistake. If this isn't being taught, then every single one of these organizations needs to stop taking donation money and money from the government until they start teaching properly and putting their foot down. Making sure that the girls know what to do, or the boys, who's ever getting abused, because it can be a same-sex situation. That the law is doing their job and arresting these people who are abusive or raping. And the girls or boy, whoever gets raped, is comfortable going to the law whenever they need to, and is comfortable to going to these clinics. Now, we no longer live in an age of shame. We're shameless, okay? There was a time when a girl needed to get that abortion or to get rid of that child or somehow, because it was a shame if they were shamed if they got pregnant before marriage. And the girl, you can't show a hump because it means that you had sex. Well, you know what? Everybody, except for a few very religious groups, everybody, nearly let's say 97% of the people assume that two people in a relationship are having sex. So there is no shame about the sex before marriage anymore. There is no shame. So saying I need to get rid of this fetus because of the shame of being pregnant, everyone assumes that you're having sex. There's very few parents today that actually think that that isn't happening. Very few. So that card is off the table. We don't, that isn't a reason. That isn't a reason to go get an abortion because it's off the table. We have no shame. There's sex everywhere. But what needs to be changed, like I said, is the educational system to make sure these girls are learning about birth control, the boys are learning about birth control, the girls are taught about their cycles, they know where the clinic is, they know how to get the birth control, and that the clinics are doing their job. Maybe petition, go with your hats or your penises or whatever you want to put on that day. Put them both on. And go and yell and scream that Trump isn't properly educating the young people or the old people, to make sure that everyone is educated and birth control is accessible to everyone. And that will douse the fear. Might not completely quash it, but it will douse the fear But the Democrats want the fear. Do you understand? Here's the other part of the puzzle. We can solve a problem, whereas it really doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says or not. Should they decide, yes, scientifically, this is another person. This is not a part of the woman's body. Should that happen, it goes back to the states. The states decide. Most of the states are going to decide to keep abortion. I'll tell you that right now. And all these women's groups, if they care so much, then you just say, look, hitch a ride with me and I'll take it to this other state. Boom, done. It's settled. If you care so much that you're in the streets screaming and creating violence, then make sure that those girls have their abortion. But first, make sure that they're treated with respect. They deserve to be loved. They deserve to be someone who is considerate about birth control and considerate about not giving you a sexually transmitted disease. It's a very complicated thing, and it's more than just abortion. But that's what we need to be teaching. And whoever you need to go and complain to Trump. That's a good idea. Don't just go on TV and make horrible jokes that are not funny and say horrible things. Go to him. Get a coalition together and somebody intelligent go there. I mean, not somebody like we've seen on TV, some of these politicians. Somebody that can make a very cohesive argument. What needs to be done to lower the amount of abortions? Because it's terrible for a girl to go through that. It's terrible for a female because it's only the female organs that can produce a child. You have to have female organs, okay? The ones with female organs, it's terrible to go through that. It is. And we need to decrease them. We need to lower them. And we need to make sure that our societies has less STD'S, none would be great, and less abortions, none would be great. None of these women want to be pregnant, so wouldn't it be great if we could get that down as low as possible? And you know what? I would be willing to go and make that argument to Trump. And that the argument isn't coming from everybody should be celibates and nobody should be. The argument is coming from reality and compassion. But the Democrats don't want this to happen. The Democrats do not want to solve the problem. They want this problem to be forever on the plate. That way they can always get they can put fear into every community. Notice how they put fear into every single community so they can get votes to get a Democrat into office because they're looking for socialism. And socialism is bad. Please see my other videos for that. But they why do you want to belong to a party that is constantly putting you in fear and making you look like a fool, going into the streets, screaming like a maniac? I mean, you don't have any self-critical awareness, which is caused by when you smoke pot before the age of 26, because your brain is still growing. It destroys the part of your brain that they take out when they give you a lobotomy. They used to do that to people when they were depressed. They gave them a lobotomy, and you lose self-critical awareness. You don't know how you're looking. The Democratic Party is making you look like fools because they want your money. They want you to be so afraid that you'll vote for them, and they want you to put all their money into their pocket and into the people who are making money off of these unborn or terminated fetuses, even though they're this big. It's all about money. There's your bottom line. Money, power, and control. And that's what they're supposed to teach you at these battered women's shelters. It's about power and control. And the Democratic Party is using power and control, abusive tactics on you to get you to vote for them. Instead, I want somebody in office that's going to solve the problem. That's what I want. and I'll put my money into their pocket, not into the pocket of somebody who's going to scare me to death, scare me so silly, and legalize pot so I put a vagina hat on my head, or a vagina costume, or a penis costume, or whatever, and scream and yell during, I mean, there used to be a thing like respect. You respect the Capitol. You respect the order. Everybody has their chance to talk. And there's a slew of Democrats that are pouncing on Kavanaugh. I mean, they're saying what you want them to say. They're speaking for you. You don't need to open the door and show the world how crazy you are. You don't need to do that. But if you want me to speak for you, if you would like me to speak for you and put together a cohesive argument that you want these problems solved, it's better to solve these problems than to be so scared that something is going to be taken away from you. Because I don't think it is going to be. I really don't. I mean, this is a man who gave money to Planned Parenthood. The guy you want to take out of office. This is a guy, civil rights, millions to civil rights. This is really crazy because you don't know the big picture. Well, anyway, I'm going to sign off now. And if you want Felina to go and speak to the president to make sure all these agencies and we mobilize some kind of force to get people educated and to get Plan B into the hands of every woman, which every woman should have Plan B. You should have one or two Plan B with you at all times. And if you need to keep it in your friend's house, and keep it in your friend's house. You'll get there within 5 days to take it. That's the answer on that. Keep Plan B. Keep a couple of Plan B, just in case something happens, or even if you're raped, whatever. Actually, you should go to the hospital immediately. They give you a shot. I've never done that. But that's what you do. You put the power into your own hands. The Democrat Party is taking power away from you and making you crazy and scared and frightened. Instead of put the power in your own hands. Solve this problem yourself. It doesn't need to happen. And if that man is abusive, if you want anything to do with him, please go to the police. And if police don't do their job, then mobilize a force and make sure the police start doing their job. Do you understand? It's about taking your power back. This is your power, and you can do it, and you don't have to get pregnant. I've never gotten pregnant. You don't have to either. So anyway, one little kiss for all of you, no matter what side of the fence you're on. I'm in your court. I really am, and I want you to have your power back and your sanity back. You can solve this problem instead of belonging to a particular party that's keeping you in fear so they can make money. It's all about money. Join a different party. Make up a new party. Make up the pussy party. How about that? Felina's pussy party. Join Felina's pussy party. How about that? That's a good one. Goodbye. Thanks for joining me.